country and get the will. This that I'm saying, General Museveni was saying at my age, only more eloquent. He was a prized revolutionary, just like many others, just like the Sankaras, the Robert Mugabe of this world. I mean, I was named after Robert Mugabe. Can you believe that? Yes, because he was a prized revolutionary. My family used to be this bourgeoisie family just after colonialism, but it joined General Museveni, and my grandfather passed away in that war, and my father was sentenced to death. Thanks to the corruption of that regime, my mother bought him out of jail, and he was able to escape because she paid some of the people that were working in that regime, just like I was able to escape out of Uganda, thanks to those that don't agree with what was going on. So, when General Museveni was persuading our parents to join him in the Bush War, which consumed 500,000 of our people for him to get in power, he presented a 10-point program which included the return of democracy, the end of abuse of human rights, the end to corruption, and all the good things that he presented. And indeed, we must give it to him that in his first 5, maybe 10 years, he lived to that promise. When he came to power, his famous statement, which he even wrote in his book, What is Africa's Problem, was Africa's problem in general, and Uganda in particular, are the leaders that overstay in power. He said that when he was my age. He would kill anybody who reminds him of what he said when he was my age. So, while he stood for the right things, he is the perfect example of the famous saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. He has been in power for 40 years, but he believes that he is the only one that can solve the problems, majority of the problems his overstay has created. So that speaks to us a great deal. And it speaks to me personally. And I always tell people that don't look at me as your savior, because I'm a human being who can be corrupted. And that is why I believe in encouraging people to come together so we can liberate ourselves. It is not me to liberate you, neither are you the one to liberate me. We have to liberate ourselves together so we can hold each other accountable. And indeed, for us to achieve that, we're not going to get it when we get there. We're going to practice it now. We are going to institutionalize and empower our institutions so that it is not an individual that charters the way. Now, I'm out of the country, but the institution, the political party that I lead, the National Unity Platform, has my fellow leaders with whom we sit and agree many of my ideas about, and many of my ideas are challenged out, just like the ideas of others. That is what we believe in, because that is how nations are built.
Actually, this very last point, now, I mean, that very point brings me to the next question. You know, it is so interesting that when you stood up, you know, in 2017 to become the next member of parliament for the Chadondo East constituency, you were despised.
Oh yeah.
And the idea was like, this is, you know, some kind of a joke. He's just an Afro-pop musician. He's an entertainer, blah, 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 blah. What is it in you, though, that is so peculiar in you yourself, as in your persona? Because we have many other Afro-pop musicians in Uganda, the so-called Mainjas, you know, Chameleons, Baby Cool, and many others. Why? And some of them have even tried political office. But what is it that in you that I also still want to understand, and even where possible incorporate in my forthcoming book, that is able to animate this sense of energy, to move not just even the young men and the women, because I've been to Uganda and I've seen this with my eyes, but even, you know, the older generation, and even the, you know, the educated scholars. What is it that you do that defines what I want to call actually as an art of politics? in you? I mean,
Well,
why not any other musician? Why you?
Well, Professor, honestly, there's nothing special about me. No, there isn't. This that I'm doing, anybody can do. All you need to have is the decency to know that you're not special. And to know that you are because we are, and we are because you are. In Africa, we call it Ubuntu. Just like as an artist, I rose not because I had the most beautiful voice, no, but simply because what I was talking about in my songs is the common plight of the people and the thousands and later on millions that followed me and supported me were only and simply seeing themselves speak through my voice. That is when they throw my concerts, when they come, and before you know, 1, 2, 3, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, millions are associated with you. Anybody and everybody can do this. All they have to do is to think, especially in the context of artists, all they have to do is to think beyond Friday night. As simple as that. And indeed, to look into history, to learn from history. We have had great people that lived. I idolize Bob Marley. Bob Marley was a great artist. He spoke about all these things. The only thing that he needed to do is to speak about them on a more formal platform. I've been singing about these injustices and all that, and maybe I've just been reminded that sometimes something needs to happen to you. I was like all these other artists, Professor, until I was 35. I mean, I became a star at a very early age of 21, you know, and I was singing about the girls and the drinks and the rides and everything. And indeed, by 23, 25, I was one of the most popular, if not the most popular and successful artists in our country. But there's this one day, I had just bought a brand new Cadillac Escalade with 24-inch spinning wheels, the first of its kind in East Africa. And I was coming from a famous nightclub called Angenoa Discotheque. When this young man of my age walked up to me, I mean, I used to, back then when I was younger, I was full of life. I used to move in waves, you know. So this night, this particular night, I'm walking from the club and entering my car, and as you can expect, all the cars were looking at me, and I was feeling myself. I was the guy of the moment. So this young man, around my age, walks to me, knocks on my car. When I put the glass down, the window down, he slapped the hell out of me. So I got out to teach him a lesson. Then he pulled up a gun and put it on my face. And I mean, no matter how strong you are, you're not going to fight a guy with a gun. Smacked me again. And then I asked him, why are you beating me? What have I done to you? Asked me, why are you showing off? Don't you know this country has owners? Now, from his accent, he was coming from the ruling tribe, and he was a security operative, and was clearly above the law. So people surrounded to see who is this beating our celebrity. You can imagine, for example, now somebody slapping a Justin Bieber or Snoop Dogg or something. That is the kind of artist that I was. Even the security of the club came and pleaded with him instead. Say, Afande means the high-ranking officer. Said, Afande, forgive him. He didn't know there are forces around here. So he ordered me, get into your stupid car, get out of here. I had nothing to do. I got into my car with my friend Nubian, and we drove. We didn't talk or look and each other would turn. But as I was driving back home, so many thoughts came to me. The injustice and all that. But again, it was not the first time I was seeing this, only that it was happening to me. It had been happening to other people. In the same club I was there, and these military officers would come, and I mean, sometimes there were nights where university students were there, would come and pick somebody's girlfriend, force and take her to the car, do all manner of things. These things had been happening. But because I was a star, and I had this proximity to power, I had the illusion that it couldn't happen to me. Well, it was happening to me. That rang a bell in me, because something told me you deserve it. It has been happening to other people, you didn't say what. So this triggered something in my mind, and I started singing about, talking about them, and thinking in a totally different line. But it took a whole 10 years until the time came and I decided that I'm not just going to talk about these injustices, but I am going to go to a formal platform where I can actually speak about them, maybe influence policies that can protect our people. So experiences that we go through many times open our eyes. Maybe some of my fellow artists are still living in the illusion that they are safe until they get the rude awakening. I hope they don't get it at a time when they can't do nothing about it. Yeah.
Right. Recently, you graduated out of law school also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations. And now you are a lawyer. Do you see any separation of powers in Uganda at the moment? And if not,
emotional pain. Freedom is
do
coming.
you see any separation of powers?
Closing up them up full inspire me. Slightly faster tempo. Big chorus. Emotional pain.
No.
And he believes in total subjugation, and he believes in rule by terror. So it is not just lack of separation of powers. It is state capture. It is a state of terror in Uganda. Yeah.
Do you think that, one more question from me before we now open it up to the audience, do you think that with that condition now in place, that the National Unity Platform that you lead as its current president has an important role to play in order to resuscitate that sense of constitutionalism in the country? And if so, how do you envision that to take course over time?
I would say our major role is to keep the hope alive. Is to keep the hope alive. The National Unity Platform, myself and my friends came in at a time when Museveni was proudly saying that by the next election there will be no opposition, because those that he had not subdued, he had bought up. The Uganda's oldest political party, the Democratic Party, was bought out. Its president is now the Minister for Constitutional Affairs. He's the one that brought the law to disempower opposition political parties. He's the one that is overseeing the trial of civilians in a military court. And having hitherto been renowned opposition people, they are being used to present the most embarrassing laws. One renowned lawyer called Sibambi, who was just a few months ago, maybe 3 or 4, was the deputy president of the Forum for Democratic Change, the party that Dr. Besigye used to lead. Is the one that drafted and presented a new law that was passed the day before yesterday that provides that a Ugandan that leaves Uganda is referred to as a foreigner. So you and I are effectively foreigners. And this law prohibits Ugandans sending back money to fellow Ugandans without the permission of a minister. And anybody that is found guilty of doing that runs the risk of serving 20 years in prison or a fine of 2 billion shillings or both. This is meant to completely disempower the population, and it is now in the offing that they are trying to scrap presidential elections to ensure that members of parliament who are handpicked by the regime are the ones that elect president. So the role of the National Unity Platform first is to keep the hope alive, to keep galvanizing the population, to bring people together. And one very important role of the National Unity Platform is to look at itself not just as a political party. Now this is rather confusing. We started out as a loose political movement called the People Power Movement. And we've said it many times that we are not a political party. We are a movement. We are the People Power Movement. We just have a political party, our electoral platform. But the People Power Movement encompasses all Ugandans. One thing that we are confident about is the people of Uganda, from the east to the west, from the north to the south and the central, are all for change. And this was evident in the recently concluded elections. So we are to keep the hope alive, to guide our people, and most importantly, to keep them non-violent. I find myself in a challenging situation leading a generation that is hungry and angry and wants to free themselves by any means necessary, and rightly so. But because I am aware that for the last 40 years, General Museveni has spent all our money not to revamp the healthcare system or the education system or to develop the country or to improve the infrastructure, but to stockpile weapons, to fortify himself as the master of violence. Now, we don't want to give it to him. That is why we have decided to use non-violence. Because when we use non-violence, we render his weapons impotent. So we are using non-violence in order to deny him opportunity to mow us down. Well, I know that even when we have been non-violent all this time, when you arrest political activists, they are paraded in the judicial court. You know, we are referred to as terrorists. We are referred to as agents of the West and all that. But we maintain that line because we don't want to go violent. We've studied, history has shown us that violence only breeds more violence. Violence creates this vicious circle of not only violence but entitlement. And our desire is to overthrow the guns, is to disempower violence, and bring forth a generation of reason. That is our role as the National Unity Party.
Thank you very much. His Excellency. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are opening up the floor for questions. Please introduce yourself and then be sure to make your questions precise because I'm so sure that there's many of those. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Let's take two. And it can be the conversation actually. We can maintain this, you know.
Thank you for having us. And Bobby, we look up to you. Thank you. As a young man. My name is Kimani from Kenya. A lot of East African youth are courageous right now. They're educated and they're organizing to take over and their rightful space into leadership. If you could talk to a young person in Uganda, in Kenya, in East Africa, what would you tell them to be able to turn their frustration into a long-term change instead of emotional reaction online?
Thank you. If I could talk to a young man in Uganda, in Kenya, in East Africa, and Africa. But before I talk to that young man in Kenya and in Uganda, why don't I talk to that young man here, right now? That young man that is asking me that question, that young man is Kenyan. You, the Africans that are here, man, we look up to you so much. You are the intellectuals that we have. Every student, I mean, you are in the University of Michigan. These are the noble universities where the founders of our countries went. The fathers of independence, the Kwame Nkrumahs of this world, the Milton Obotes of this world. When they were your age, they were here thinking about Africa. And indeed, when they came back home, they brought those skills and ideas. So, I want to speak to you first and to let you know that you are our hope. You are the intellectuals that we have, you know. So it is supposed to be part of our call. Leaders, you have read all this. You know what is wrong and what is right. You know what works and what does not work. You are our Nyereres. You are our Kenyattas. You are our Jomos. You are our Obotes. Etc. etc. So get involved. Don't look at matters of back home as matters to be sorted by those that are home, and then you return home. That is what has kept us where we are today. For you guys to be here, so much has been invested back home. So we need you. Get involved in the politics of our country. Gladly, now the world is even more connected. You can lead from where you are. Now to the young people back home. You are the future. there's a song that I did. It says, "We are the country, we are the future, we are the change we badly need. We are the youngest population in the world, we stand a chance. We are the leaders of the future, and the future is today." So the future is today. Take charge of your future. The people that gave us independence were in their late 20s and early or mid 30s. The old ones among them were in their late 30s when they changed home. And majority of our people were old. Today, we are young people. Back home, I'm an old man at 44. You know? So, how can young countries be governed by men and women in their 80s? How can the future of young people be determined by the people whose future is already behind them? So, get involved, take charge, because in any case, you are stuck in Kenya, you are stuck in Uganda, you are stuck in Africa. These guys are going to die. I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. You know, they are on their way out. So it is important for us to determine our future. Franz Fanon wrote and said, every generation out of deep reflection must realize its cause and choose to betray it or pursue it. I have no doubt that you people, you Africans, you young Africans, here and back home, already know your cause. Now it's up to you to betray it by your silence or to pursue it by getting involved in any way. I'm playing my little role with my little knowledge as a humble artist from the ghetto. You young people out there know much more. You the educated people. You the knowledgeable people. Rise to the occasion and take charge of your nations. Take charge of your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Please allow me to acknowledge the progress you've led thus far in your journey. In these coming 5 years, Uganda is likely going to experience some kind of like political turning shift. There is a possibility that the constitution may be changed to allow parliamentarians to vote for the presidency than the public election or the public vote. Thinking about that, it can be an opportunity for change-seeking forces if they do think that they have, a shot through parliament into the executive. On the other hand, it can also be seen as one of the ways that the incumbent regime has continued to make sure it remains in power. How is the National Unity Platform, thinking about approaching that perspective or that possible political shift? Let alone maybe the National Unity Platform, but how should Ugandans think about approaching such a possibility? Charles Katlam, I'm a global health researcher here at the University of Michigan, and of course Ugandan.
We can get another question and he will answer after the second.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity and thanks to the President for honoring the invitation from Michigan. Given that Museveni has deliberately embedded loyalty within Uganda's state institutions, most visibly through military appointments, of his son, Mohozi, who in my opinion shouldn't be in that office. So how does this present a challenge to the potential transition, and how does this approach to public appointments inform the strategy that leads us to a new Uganda?
Okay. Shall I answer those two of you? Thank you very much. The first question was about the known efforts by General Museveni to deny the people of Uganda opportunity to elect their leaders, so he can have his way in parliament. And was asking what are the plans of the National Unity Platform to counter that. I've said it again and again that it's not only about the NUP. The National Unity Platform is a party that I lead. Look where I am, running for my life, running from an unhinged 52-year-old spoiled son of a dictator who tweets and gives orders on X to his soldiers that I should be delivered to him, dead or alive, that I should be castrated. And these are not jokes. He threatens and delivers to his threats. You saw when he abducted my bodyguard and tortured him, shaved his beard and stripped him naked, and posted pictures of him, telling the nation that Ed is in his basement being told when you are calling his mother down. Just yesterday, and these are not tweets of years or months ago, just yesterday, if you go to X and look for Mohozi Kainerugaba, that is the son of the Ugandan president, who he gifted with the rank of military general and appointed chief of defense forces. That is where we are. The National Unity Platform is the moral platform. It can only go so far. I've mentioned that the day before yesterday, another sickening law was passed to the shock of all Ugandans. I mean, all moral voices gave their opinion. Religious leaders, traditional leaders, even the governor of Bank of Uganda said this is going to affect the economy, because Uganda is a country that relies largely on the money that comes from outside. The diaspora remits up to $2 billion annually. But because the project under General Museveni, the project is not Uganda, the project is Museveni and his family. The agenda is not to lead the country to a better place. The agenda is to keep power within the family at all costs. So, that being the way it ceases to be an issue of the National Unity Platform, the party that I lead. It's an issue of all Ugandans. And like I said, NUP is our electoral platform. This is a party, by the way, that we introduced only 1 month to the 2021 election. Why? Because all other opposition political parties had been paid and ordered by the regime to keep away from us, because we were seen as too radical and uncompromising, and our agenda was, and still is, removing the dictatorship and beginning a new democratic journey for our country, Uganda. That being the way it is, it becomes, as it has always been, a matter of the people of Uganda as a whole. When this silly law was being passed the day before yesterday, the National Unity Platform under the able leadership of Right Honorable Joel Senyoni put up a moral case, because that's what we could do. But the people of Uganda had to stand firm, as they should, and as I'm confident will. I'll give you an example of the fight against slavery. While the moral white people were in Congress trying to make a case against slavery and asserting that slavery is immoral, the likes of Harriet Tubman on the plantation had to also put an effort and communicate to all and sundry that slavery is not only immoral, but it is dangerous. Therefore, while the NUP is making a political moral case, the people of Uganda must rise and free their country. They're like two wings of the bird. One cannot clap alone, it has to work in concert. I hope I communicate to you, my brother. And also to my brother, whose accent sounds like he comes from the ghetto. Thank you for that question. I can tell when I hear somebody speak and the 1, 2, 3 slang, they say, oh, he's not only from Uganda, he's from the ghetto. I'm so proud to find you in the University of Michigan and keep representing your brother. How does the Mohozi project pose a challenge to the transition? Is that what you were asking?
Not necessarily, but the approach to appointing people in most of these offices, but not just people, but people who represent Museveni's interests and Mohozi's interests, not basically for Uganda. People who...
What is your question? You think that's the statement?
Yeah, so now how does that present a challenge to the transition, and how does it inform the approach we take to remove the dictator?
Thank you very much. Now the two transitions. That in itself is actually a transition from Museveni to his son, who is effectively in charge. He recently appointed one of his friends, head of media center and government spokesperson. He had his birthday and he ordered the police, the military, border riders, taxi riders to show up and run a celebration of his birthday. And indeed, when you go to his tweet, he tweeted and said, how come I did not see the former military commanders? Are you undermining me? Why didn't you show up to run and celebrate my birthday? So that is a transition from Museveni to his son. It's a transition from a pseudo-democracy, from a facade of democracy, to a reign of terror. You saw that when he distinguished himself in terror abductions and extrajudicial killings through this election, abducting people, killing people, torturing people, his father, in response, awarded him with a medal. And in his statement, Museveni's statement, he thanked him for dealing with troublemakers during the election period. This is the same person that threatened to raid Kenya, and the following day, he was promoted to 5-star general. This is the same person that after he tweeted the naked pictures of my bodyguard under torture, 2 days later, he was made Chief of Defense Forces. And he was made Chief of Defense Forces, unlike other Chiefs of Defense Forces in the past. Before he was made Chief of Defense Forces, Museveni signed an instrument that was to the effect that the powers of the Commander-in-Chief were transferred to the Chief of Defense Forces. 2 weeks later, he made his own son Chief of Defense Forces. So that is, by and large, a transition in itself. Is it the transition that Ugandans want? No. Is it the transition that we are going to stop? Yes. The transition that we want is a transition from absolute rule to democracy, from family rule to democratic rule. And we are going to achieve that by the grace of God.
Thank you very much. So Ugandans are some of the most prolific in terms of the use of social media. And I guess that is why the president's son tweets a lot. And if you go on social media, you see a lot of Ugandans using TikTok, Instagram, as well as Twitter or X to communicate ideas. So I want to know, to what extent have you and your group also been using these platforms to communicate with or to mobilize at the grassroots level?
Thank you very much. Yeah, Ugandans are using social media, and largely because it is the remaining medium of communication for Ugandans. Like all dictatorships, the media is completely usurped. Most, if not all, radio stations are controlled by the regime. Those that dared to challenge the regime have been either closed or completely incapacitated. Majority of the radio presenters are owned by military chiefs, regime operatives, ministers, many. And others that used to speak out don't. For example, I am not hosted on any radio TV station in Uganda. Never mind that my voice is the most heard and my cute face is the most. Why? Thanks to social media. Social media has always been our way out. And the regime has not taken this lightly. This started when I rose to the occasion and became member of parliament. The regime could not stop this message from going out. So what the regime did is that they introduced a tax on social media. Yes, the first in the world, social media tax. I and many of my friends went to prison for protesting against the social media tax. No tax on the internet. You could buy your MPs, but you had to pay a tax to use Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp or that. That did not work because the people of Uganda said, okay, we shall pay that tax, but we shall communicate. They started finding ways of going around it. The next step, and that was during the 2021 election, Facebook was the only way we were communicating. That was before the introduction of TikTok and others. Facebook was the most popular social media in Uganda. It was banned. So 6 years ago, Facebook is banned in Uganda. Why? Because it annoys General Museveni. That did not work either. Because, like I told you, Ugandans are largely young people, and with age comes with creativity. So Ugandans went around that ban and we used VPN, and it works. So if you ever get your Facebook banned here, because it can, VPN did a good job for us. So when that, happened, General Museveni, using another member of parliament that poses to be an opposition member of parliament, introduced a law called the Computer Misuse Act. And under this law, many TikTokers, many tweets, and many bloggers are rotting in jail for communicating what the regime does not like. Never mind the fact that Museveni's son himself, who is the chief of defense forces, pictures people's wives and posts them naked. Pictures citizens and posts them naked. On a daily, he's posting unhinged stuff. But as you know, the law in Uganda is nothing more than the paper on which it's written. So yeah, while there are those challenges, one thing that I'm proud to say is that Ugandans are unrelenting. We are always creative. We are always dynamic. And we always go around these blockages like we have done today. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple hands. Oh, yeah, somebody already has a microphone. Please go.
Oh.
Yes. And then,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Hello? Thank you. My name is Eloise Salif. As an African, a Liberian, I'm from Liberia, West Africa. So when you talk about political violence, electoral violence, dictatorship, it's something I've experienced. When you talk about passion of the young people getting involved to seize the opportunity and get the movement for themselves to play a role in growing the state, I played that role in my younger years, growing up in Liberia. My parents didn't even know I was active in my country, advocating for change. One of my first protests was the last big protest that was heard in Liberia. Innocent, enthusiastic, energetic. I knew I wanted something different. But that difference fitting in with why it's true with protests for change, the same things we talk about that we did when Museveni came into power. We advocated for change. So, let's protest in Liberia. Then the Civil War, came the Civil War. I think you heard of Liberia Civil War. Well, that didn't change anything in our country. Many of us lost loved ones. But I was fortunate to leave Liberia and come to the United States. Stay looking for that energy to fight for democracy. And living in the United States, my big brother and Moses can attest to that. I get in contact with my immigrants community and telling them to be active while you are away from home. Know your rights as an immigrant. Know who's representing you. Both, but still be connected to your country and people back home. And for that reason, I go back to Liberia every other year. Join political party, advocate, and participate in the election. But advocating now and leaning towards democracy is becoming so fearful. Very fearful. And having worked and still working in one of the countries in the world that I have looked up to as the greatest democracy, and seeing that there's other things happening, my fear increases for people like you, activists in Africa, activists or political leaders in developing countries. So I have a question, and I tried to write this question down because I want to be politically correct. A question for you, it says that when you look at the present trend on the global scene with democracy, you see how it's being attacked and it's eroding. And it willing to continue to put your life on the line for democracy in Uganda? That's my question. When you look at the global picture of how democracy is eroding now, that's a question I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. If you permit me immediately respond to my sister here. Yeah. What's my view on the global trend of democracy universal, and how do I look at it? Man, oh man. I'm glad you said you want to be politically correct. I don't want to be, I hate being politically correct, but I'll be cautious. Because I'm a refugee here now. I'd rather not mess with you guys. But a while ago I told you Americans that democracy, however old it is always one step away from extinction. So guard it with your life. Yeah, I mean, Liberia, at least you've been there. You've had people like Charles Taylor, and at least you are an example. You had Africa's first female president, and you have had the opportunity of voting in and out presidents, including the famous George Weah and all that. We envy you, man. You're not where you're supposed to be, but you're certainly where we would love to at least reach in our lifetimes. To be able to choose our own leaders, to see our vote counting. We don't have a vote in Uganda. We want to have a vote. We have been independent for 63 years, since 1962. But not one president has been elected to power. They shoot their way in and they're shot out of power. We want to see an elected president by the people of Uganda in our lifetime. You mentioned it that many times it gets dangerous. Yes, it gets dangerous. Many people, many of our brothers and sisters, we don't know where they are. They don't even have graves. But they were picked from home on camera. Many of my friends are in prison. Eddie Mukwe, Machete Yasin, young ladies like Olivia Lutaya, Doreen Kaija, Sauda Madada, name them. As we speak right now, there are young women that were picked, you know, about 2 or so weeks ago. A young lady, a TikToker called Blitty, was picked from a funeral of the wife of our spokesperson who passed away when he was in prison on the trumped up case. She was picked by the military. Up to now, we don't know where she is. So it gets tough. I'm not home. You know, we are scattered. My young families elsewhere. I'm here trying to advance because it comes with a cost. But I can tell you, my sister, at the end of the day, that cost is worth it. Why? Because we know that freedom comes to those who fight, not to those who cry. Because the more we cry, the more our people continue to die. So we choose to fight because ain't no other way, you know. At least we know that when we don't give up, victory is imminent. More fierce evils have been overcome. Slavery was overcome. Colonialism was overcome. Apartheid was overcome. These were evils with more grounded forces and resources. Then what about dictatorships? Which dictatorships are actually empowered by democracies like America? So, if we don't stop fighting, we will get there. I can only say, let's keep the hope alive. Let us not stop. Let us use every opportunity. Let us keep putting one foot in front of the other. The little things that we do add up to much more. Maybe in just this little conversation that we're going, maybe we'll spark minds that will also spark others. I used to love Tupac. Tupac said, I'm not sure that I'll change the world, but I'm sure that I'll spark the brain that will change the world. Man, you guys are already burning brains. It's just to remind you of how important you are, of how effective that you are, of how much you can do more, you know, and maybe that will create a ripple effect. Before you know, we achieve what we must achieve. For as long as we don't stop, let us not look at the threat, let us look at the prize. Thank you.
Yeah, so we are happy to have two more questions. I have actually my first PhD advisee here at the University of Michigan is also here. I would love to give the third opportunity to him. You have to, because his research is on music and politics in Nigeria. And so I'll give the third. So 2 plus his 3.
Okay.
Yeah, but briefly, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, His Excellence, and yeah, for all the insightful aspects that you've shared. I'm glad that you touched on the dictators of Africa, Mugabe's, obviously Museveni's, and many others established the frontline state. And of course, some well-respected statesmen like Kenneth Kaunda's, Julius Nyerere's, and some Roma Shells and many others were quite progressive. So my question is, what's the game plan? Because definitely you do have your own youngsters of your own generation, the likes of Chamisa. I know you're quite close to Chamisa in Zimbabwe. And the same model is operant. I think Uganda and Zimbabwe are quite twins in a way when you talk about this politics of dictatorship, because whatever is happening in Uganda is what is happening in Zimbabwe right now, and constitutional changes, if I might be allowed to say, and many other atrocities, especially when it comes to human rights violation. So I understand that dismantling of colonialism came about due to international solidarity, regional solidarity, national solidarity, and of course the diaspora plays a very important role. So what's the game plan for you? Thank you.
Thank you. What's the game plan? Oh, man.
The other question. The next question.
I forgot to say I'm Janet Munakamwe, UMEP scholar, African Studies Center, Western South Africa. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shakira. I'm from Uganda. My question is going to be brief. So, as we all know, not all of us, but Ugandans that are here and back home, we know healthcare system is sucks. Last summer, I got a chance to go back home, and I was shadowing at Barra Referral Hospital, where people die left and right. It was horrible. Yes, death is inevitable, but sometimes it can be avoided. But people couldn't afford 2,000 shillings, which is less than $1, to buy medical supplies. And this is supposed to be a government hospital. So my question to you, Mr. President, is, so I'm going to manifest. When you become the president or your party, which measures or policies or plans do you have for affordable and accessible healthcare for the people that can't afford it? Thank you.
And let's get Joshua's also at once, and then we call it.
Okay, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. As you know, Charles said, I'm his PhD student, so Joshua Kurobo in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance as an ethnomusicologist. But yeah, I have so many questions I'd love to ask you, but I'll just ask one that's very simple. I know that you brought up this love of Bob Marley. Been reading the works, that Charles has written on you and your kind of early political activism, even when it was over this, One Love Beach that became a very contested place. But I'm just wondering about, when thinking about popular music and reggae, for example, like where did that love of Bob Marley come from? Are there other reggae artists that you're inspired by? And how does, the work that they put in with their music, and of of course, their own sort of political trials and tribulations. How would those sorts of things inspire your own? Because, of course, Bob Marley was fighting this larger gang war in Jamaica, but, I mean, that was kind of, you know, that was overshadowed by what was this larger battle between, you know, communism and, capitalism. And so I'm just wondering how some of these elements might come out in your musical work. And then if I could just add a quick one, you know, I'm thinking about Fela Kuti, and, you know, something similar happened between him and the military, right? Even I don't think he wasn't even really that politically inclined at the time, but he was saying things that, you know, the military didn't like. And so, of course, they came to his home, they beat so many people, they threw his mother out the window, which she eventually succumbed to her injuries. But I'm wondering about, because he created Zombie after that one, and, you know, became very kind of, insulting to the military. I'm wondering if you have something like that, at least musically, that's cooking, you know, to critique those that are in the military, and in what sort of way? Because when we think about these dictatorships or these military regimes, right, it's the military, right? It really, not to say that, of course, there's not one big man behind it, but it's the military, and, you know, there are individuals in that military that can hopefully have their heads turned. Not to say that we should be hoping for a coup over the return of democracy, but, you know, is there a way to inspire people that also are seeing this guy, this, you know, son of, again, a rich dictator, and saying, like, this guy is not the one to lead us? What does he even know about military conduct and whatnot? And if you have any sort of opinions about that.
Thank you. Interesting questions, and sadly it's the last batch of questions, but I hope my humble answer will communicate to you effectively. Now, the first sister asked, what is our game plan? Maybe I should attempt your question last. Let me go from down. Let me start with the brother who asked me about the music, where I got the love of that music, such protest music, activist music, revolutionary music, and whether I am doing anything more of the same. Yes, I got inspired not only by Bob Marley. I mean, here I speak of Bob Marley because Bob Marley was more international. I wasn't sure people knew of people like Fela until you mentioned, glad you come from Nigeria. But people like Peter Tosh spoke truth to power. I mean, people like, without a doubt, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, amazing guy. He took so many beatings from the Nigerian military. And he spoke my mind then, he spoke my mind even before I was born, when he called them zombies. Because, I mean, these soldiers, if they're not zombies, what are they? There's a song that I sang, and it was dedicated to the soldiers. They say, Afande, I'm not fighting you, I am fighting for you. I am fighting for your children. Your children go to the same hospitals, sick hospitals as mine. Your wife will die giving birth, like many of our wives do die. You buy groceries from the same market. You know, the misrule affects you the same. But when they order you to beat me for speaking against what's wrong, for defending what is right, I don't understand you. For me, I get a little closer to these soldiers, and many of them intimate to me. And they tell you, Bobby, we are under capture. I mean, I was able to escape Uganda because many of them disagree with what's going on. And many of them were sent to arrest me, but instead they gave me information that kept me safe. So these soldiers are also captive. There's somebody who wrote and said that there are no bad soldiers, there are only bad commanders, and I agree with the writer. So it is the bad commanders. And indeed, in our effort to liberate Uganda, and East Africa and Africa. We're not only liberating the people, we are liberating the soldiers and police officers too. And the first step for citizens is not to look at these police officers or military officers as enemies, but those that send them to brutalize their fellow citizens in order to keep the power of the few. Many of them, the Miriam Makebas, Eddie Grant, Hugh Masekela, you can name it. I know music is a very effective weapon against oppression. And like you heard, I introduced myself as an artist, as a musician, not as a politician. I'd rather be known as an ordinary citizen. This will inspire them to know that them being ordinary citizens can actually also do what I'm doing or even better. So yes, I'm still doing music. And now that I have a little bit of safety and sanity, I'm going to hit studio again and wait for some vibes from me. For those out there, follow me on X, Bobby Wine. Follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, and we can keep the link, we can keep communicating, we can keep inspiring each other. Of course, you talked about encouraging coups. I did not say I'm encouraging coups against dictators, but neither did I say I'm discouraging them. Because while most coups are vicious circles, at least we've seen in history a guy like Jerry Rawlings in Ghana that took over and handed power to civilian rule in his lifetime. So maybe, just maybe, there's some good soldiers. In the recent months or years, we were celebrating our brother Ibrahim Traore that took over power in a coup, although it keeps disappointing when he abolished the Electoral Commission and now recently discouraged democracy. And while I respect him, while he came in the image of the noble Thomas Sankara, who inspires even me to wear this beret, I disagree with anybody that rules over people without their mandate. I believe in servant leadership. I know it's popular, and I encourage, in fact, challenge my brother Ibrahim, my young brother Ibrahim Traore, as a popular artist, as a popular leader. Let him allow the people of Burkina Faso to elect him so he can be their servant, so we can know that he's serving the country with the mandate of the people. Short of that, he's not ruling over citizens, he's ruling over subjects. And no person should be a subject to any ruler. All leaders should lead in the interest and the mandate of their people. And that can only be achieved when people vote for you and give you the mandate. People should always retain the power to appoint you and disappoint you, because Burkina Faso, like many other countries in Africa, do not produce only one person. There are many, so they should be able to elevate and bring down anybody depending on how she or he serves them. My sister from Uganda went to Mbarara. Mbarara is in Ankole. Mbarara is where Museveni comes from. My wife comes from Western Uganda. She's the same tribe with Museveni. And the rest of Ugandans actually have a false belief that the region where the president comes from is privileged and has facilities running, has good hospitals. Some actually tend to think that the Banyankole get tribal allowance. I'm so glad that you mentioned it, that under dictatorship, nobody is safe, not even where he or she comes from. You saw that people are so poor that they can die because of not having as low as less than $1. What is the plan? Once we change our country, the national coffers, the budget of the country, will not be focused on maintaining power, but serving the people. We are not reinventing the wheel, and I, like I've said in the past, I'm not claiming to be all-knowing, but I know that the intellectuals of the day, that so much money has been spent, so many workshops have been attended in the country and abroad, and solutions to terrible health care have been suggested. The countries like Kenya and Rwanda that have adopted them have improved their healthcare system, and our political elite go to those countries to get health care.
Because emotional being.
Ministry of Health in Uganda, we lose 20 women every day during childbirth. Every day, they died yesterday, they have died today, or they will die by midnight, and they will die tomorrow. It has been like this, it is like this, and it will continue to be like this until it's changed. We lose 300 children every day to avoidable causes. They died yesterday, they have or will die by end of today. Tomorrow continues until it's changed. But the solution to that was to improve the healthcare budget to as low as 15% of the budget. But because that is not the priority, you know, they continue to die as we keep crying. So the solution is implementing these beautiful and life-changing, life-saving suggestions and proposals. And as president, those people will not have to die again. When I am president of Uganda, we will improve the budget of our healthcare system. We will pay our doctors right. We presented it in our manifesto. We did a song when I still had the liberty to sing. And we said no child is born to die and no mother should die giving birth. And as president, I will be very, very strict. And there will be a lot of questions if a single woman dies giving birth, because no mother should die giving life. Finally, the question to our sister was, what's the game plan? Man, I'm here to get ideas from you guys. But before that, there are two fronts. The first, generally, is not giving up, not stopping, and keeping on adopting all ideas that come. We, as the National Inter-Platform, the party that I lead, we have put all legal, all constitutional, and all moral options on the table. I know that many of our friends have advocated to fighting back by any means necessary. While I'm not encouraging violence, I'm not discouraging it. I mean, we are encouraging non-violence because that's what we believe in. But every day, I lose justification to stop people that want to free themselves by any means necessary. So for me and my friends, we are non-violent, and we encourage non-violence because it is safe, it is moral, it is more powerful, and much as it is painful, it is the more guaranteed path of empowering an entire population, not empowering those that have the guns. So for us, we want to defeat the guns. But what English words do you want me to use to tell a guy whose wife has been raped, whose family has been killed by a person that is tweeting and just stamping about it? What words do you want me to use? So not giving up is our first option. It continues to be constant. But now that I'm in America, we also have another front, a front which we know is very, very effective. We know that Idi Amin was empowered by the British and the international community. And when the British were done with Amin, Amin fell. The international community supported the apartheid regime in South Africa and even branded Nelson Mandela a terrorist. It was until a documentary about apartheid premiered in New York, and there were various Africans and friends of Africa from all walks of life, from all colors, all creeds, and all beliefs came together and marched against apartheid. Apartheid fell. So the wind beneath evil rulers and dictators is always in the democracies, and America is the world's biggest democracy. So we always come to them, and I'm here. And many times I've gone to the Capitol Hill, calling upon them, asking them to stand by the values that they profess, values of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. And we've told them that we are not asking them to come and save us, we are asking them to stop sponsoring our oppression. They give Museveni up to $1 billion every year. A person that they know has been in power for 40 years. If there was a dictator that has been in power for 40 years in Europe, he or she would be treated like a leper. We have not seen any officials from the free world standing shoulder to shoulder with Europe's last dictator, Lukashenko from Belarus. Why then do they stand shoulder to shoulder with Museveni? Is the standard of democracy in Africa any less? Is the standard of human rights in Africa any less? If the standard of human rights and democracy in Africa is regarded less, that is nothing less than racism. So we ask them to stop sponsoring dictatorships in Africa, to stop doing business with renowned dictators as if they are dealing with legitimate leaders. And well, I'm trying to say this in a polite way because I don't want to be misunderstood. But look in history. When Idi Amin did what Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned, he was criticized. Those that are fighting against Idi Amin, even when they were fighting violently, they were supported. My sister from Liberia, when Charles Taylor did what Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned and even arrested. Why then is Museveni and his son not arrested, or at least sanctioned? in this time and era when they have, tools like targeted sanctions against human rights violators, when they have laws like the Global Magnitsky, they can evoke them. I am not ordering them. I'm just requesting them to be the big brothers of democracy that they claim to be. Thank you very much.
People power, our power, NUP, and everywhere.
All right. For the purposes of keeping our memories, we're going to take a couple pictures with the director.
Yeah, just
okay, and then he's going to give us the closing remark first, and then we'll take a couple pictures.
All right, thank you very much, Bobby Wine, and thanks, Charles, for moderating this panel. So the thing is, the story of Africa is the same, whether you are talking about the Sudan, you are talking about Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, or wherever you turn to in Africa, the story seems to be the same. But what we can take away from this is that the future of Africa also depends on building a democratic system that works for everyone, and the youth and people of Africa are the engine for building that democratic structure that will eventually work for everyone. So that's what I think is our major takeaway from this today. So please, let's thank Bobby Wine for joining us this afternoon. And thank you to Charles for moderating on the short notice. And of course, without forgetting our colleagues who are work in Uganda or are from Uganda, particularly Derek Peterson. And other Ugandan colleagues, East African colleagues who are in the audience here. And also our staff at the African Studies Center and the Dunia Human Rights Center, Marwa Hassan, Tepa, and Wesley. Thank you for putting this event together. We really appreciate your hard work in making it happen. So thanks to our wonderful audience. We didn't expect this much audience because students are almost gone from campus because our semester ended a few weeks ago. But we are happy that all of you made it to this event this afternoon. And we hope that when next we call on you, you will, as you always do, show up for African Studies Center. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so all the members who wish and they belong to the African Studies Center, we could take a picture here that will actually have on the website.
Papa.
My friend is an African studies major.
Hold, you end up with fun.
Asking me if there's anything inside.